We have with us first up Shri Padmanabhan, former Executive Director, Reserve Bank of India and ex-Chairman, Bank of India, to also set the tone for the session and to also invite and introduce none other than, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome on stage Shri Piyush Goyal, Honourable Minister of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable presence at the Global Fintech Fest 2024. And if I could request Shri Padmanabhan, sir, to please set the tone and also to introduce and invite our keynote speaker for the evening. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor and privilege to welcome Mr. Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce, very prominent figure in Mumbai, is a Mumbai person, well known in the financial sector, of course. And if I remember right, I think this is the third occasion he is gracing the Fintech Fest, which is our fifth edition. So I think more often than not, he has agreed to be a part of our fraternity. And without much ado, I request Mr. Goyal to give his address. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padmanabhan. All my esteemed colleagues from the financial world, distinguished guests from across 40 countries, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, a delight to be amongst friends from a sector which has made India proud. Your achievements, the rapid pace at which you have demonstrated your capabilities, your ability to accept new technologies, to innovate, to come up with solutions for the day-to-day problems of our people, and help create newer avenues, breaking the entry barrier which left a large number of Indians deprived of banking or financial services, has truly been a service from your sector. And I'd like to thank all the organizers, PCI, NPCI, and FCC, for institutionalizing this Global Fintech Fest in its fifth edition now, and well poised to become the world's largest fintech show. I'm privileged that I've had an opportunity to participate thrice so far. I still remember the Startup India team in my ministry launching a very informative report titled Growing Inclusion in India, the Fintech Way, last year. And I do believe that the prophecies they made, the expectations from the industry have been largely fulfilled. And each one of you deserves accolades for keeping abreast with the latest technologies, showing the world that a developing nation, not yet fully integrated with international financial systems in terms of high levels of technology, is able to come up with low-cost solutions, which today, I dare say, are the envy of the rest of the world. What you have achieved is something where many other countries may have invested billions and billions of dollars and yet not been successful. Whereas India, through its belief, the power of belief in yourself, that our technocrats, our friends in the financial services sector, our computer specialists, our software specialists, all of you together have created what today is widely recognized as a phenomenal success story in the fintech world. I still remember nearly 4 years ago, I had been approached by a very prominent bank who was able to foresee what the India stack potential is and where it could go forward. And I still recall them 4 years ago telling me that if you're willing to give even a small piece of the India stack equity ownership, we are happy to value it at several $100 billion at that point of time. With today's revolution in your sector, which has helped democratize the financial world, take it to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid, across the country in every remote corner, and with $420 billion being transacted already through the payment systems that you have created, I think the valuation of any such India stack story or technology that we have been able to develop in India would be many times the number that was told to me a few years ago. Friends, the last decade has been transformational for India. I still recall, and I believe the Prime Minister mentioned about the success of the Jan Dhan accounts. This was launched 10 years and 2 days ago in 2014. And the idea was to take financial inclusion across the country to every single family. I still remember a lot of people had ridiculed the concept of Jan Dhan accounts and Prime Minister Modi's own confidence in his abilities to take banking to those who had been left behind, who were unbanked for generations. Prime Minister Modi had set a task that he would like every family in the country to have at least one bank account. And the zero balance bank accounts were conceptualized, were propagated and promoted throughout the country. I must acknowledge the humongous role played by our bankers, our public sector bankers, some of the private sector banks which had also joined in this humongous effort. And in barely 4 months, by early January, end of December, we had reached a situation of, if my memory serves me right, 130 million new bank accounts. Barely 125 days. We had gone up to 130 million no frills, zero balance Jan Dhan accounts. Truly a phenomenal achievement, given that a large number of these account holders had never even entered the premises of a bank. In fact, they felt very intimidated whether they would even be welcome or allowed to go into the bank. They also had a little bit of a hesitation that with no money in the pocket, with nothing to deposit, would they be valued customers of that bank? But Prime Minister Modi had the courage of conviction and the commitment that he wanted this to happen. And before him, in his mind, was a plethora of opportunities that he saw opening up through these Jan Dhan bank accounts. In fact, largely related to the adoption of technologies and how these banking relationships with the poor would help us in our developmental journey to take the poor people out of poverty. I recall in 2015 at Davos, Queen Maxima of Netherlands had a engagement on financial inclusion. And it was a breakfast meeting at Davos, and the entire session was focused on trying to understand from me how this could ever have been achieved, that we have managed to take a bank account to every family in the remotest parts of India, with the poorest of the poor also having a bank account. In most cases, a bank account in the name of the women of the household. And for them, it was something very difficult to imagine, more so because even the Sustainable Development Goals had envisaged that we will have banking or financial inclusion reach all the people of the world by 2030. That was the SDG goal. But Prime Minister Modi, through sheer perseverance, with relentless monitoring of the program and holding officials accountable for performance during that 125-day period, successfully got the banks activated, got people involved, and we saw a revolution which has held us in good stead until today. And friends, Prime Minister Modi, in fact, taught many of us who are his colleagues, his junior colleagues, a lesson or two in management. Padmanabhan ji just mentioned I'm a Mumbai boy, and after studying chartered accountancy, doing law, running an industry, working as an investment banker, one did think that we would know quite a bit about how to manage programs. But believe me, friends, when I heard from the Prime Minister in one informal conversation how he had run the entire Jan Dhan initiative, it was an eye-opener. I can almost tell you, it was very much like an adolescent learning some new trick. And he actually, I still remember the conversation. I had mainly gone there to discuss with him the coal auctions. Some of you may remember, there was a huge coal gate, a coal scam, where over 190 coal mines had been given out to friends and relatives without due process. And in September 2014, the Supreme Court had cancelled 190 coal blocks allotment and given us only 6 months to take these mines back into the market, offer it to newer people to run through a transparent process. We had created the whole system to auction these mines, and I had really gone to report to Honourable Prime Minister about the progress of my mining auction. During the meeting, just casually asked me towards the end about how many LED bulbs my ministry had been able to market. Some of you may also recall we had launched a massive program, and a very successful one at that, to convert all the lighting in the country to LED bulbs. And I think today you must all be using very energy efficient LED bulbs in your homes, in your offices, which are hugely saving the energy consumption and the bills of the people of India. So he just asked me, how many bulbs have you sold? I had not gone prepared. I said, sir, I'll find out and get back to you. He sat me down. It was early morning, I think about 8:30 or 9. And he explained to me. He said, Piyush, programs will not be successful unless there's aggressive monitoring and you hold people accountable with very regular interface. You're not going to be able to succeed. And then he spoke about the Jan Dhan accounts program that was launched in August of 2014. I very enthusiastically said that, yes, I remember in the cabinet meetings on Wednesday, you are giving us details about the progress of the Jan Dhan program and what's happening. He said, no, on Wednesday, I'm only giving you, all my members of the cabinet, my colleagues, a report card of what's happened in the previous week. But I'm working every single day, every single morning. I've dedicated time. This is the Honourable Prime Minister speaking. I've dedicated time to make the Jan Dhan program a success. Every morning, he would take a report of all the 700 odd districts across the country to see who was performing well, who were the laggards, what was the progress against stated targets. Wherever there were good performers, he would personally call up bank managers. Friends, imagine the impact on the system when the Prime Minister of India calls up a bank manager to compliment him for the good work and the effort he is doing to serve the less privileged sections of society. For the laggards, he would call them up, or at least some of them, try to understand their difficulties, if any, encourage them to do more. And friends, the few people that he would talk to, word would spread like wildfire in the banking system. And imagine the impact it had on each of those branch managers who heard that the Prime Minister has called our colleagues. And the rest, friends, is history. Today, 10 years later, when we celebrate a successful decade of Jan Dhan, we have 530 million Jan Dhan accounts. 530 million. Every willing adult in the country today proudly has a bank account of his own. He's able to transact his work through the bank account. The poor and less privileged sections of society who are beneficiaries of government's affirmative action are able to receive the money in their bank account without any middlemen, without any corruption, through a completely honest and transparent mechanism, the DBT, Direct Benefit Transfer, which rests on the JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan account, Aadhaar number and mobile phone, all of which have been saturated throughout the country so that every person has his own identity in terms of the Jan Dhan, in terms of the Aadhaar number, has a bank account, often a Jan Dhan account, and by and large today every family would have their own mobile phone. Friends, the transformative impact this has had, and I say this because I want each one of you to go from Fintech Fest 2024 proud of your achievements, proud of your contribution to nation building, proud that when we are poised to grow over the next 23 years in the Amrit Kal to become a developed nation, Viksit Bharat, to become a prosperous nation, a lot of it rests on the good work that each one of you has done. And I am very confident that this good work will hold us in good stead as we perform, as we transform, as we reform the nation, as we work collectively to make sure that no person is left behind as the country goes forward. Almost all the economists around the world recognize India's importance, the demographic dividend that we offer, young population, charged, inspired, aspiring for a better quality of life, a better future for the children of tomorrow. a country which is growing at 7-8%. In fact, in US dollar terms, we are growing at about 10%. That means we are doubling our GDP every 7 years. Fifth largest economy, poised to become the third largest as per IMF estimates in the next 3 years. A country on the move. And friends, I must acknowledge a lot of that forward movement, a lot of this success story rests on the wonderful work that the fintech sector has done, your contributions, particularly when we had the COVID pandemic, kept the wheels of the economy moving fast, moving rapidly. Your innovation, your engagement with every section of society, your imagination of newer ideas, and the passion that the fintech sector brings to the table is truly envious. Almost reminds me of that old Onida ad that Padmanabhan, you may remember, Chris will remember. Maybe some of the youngsters may not have seen it. The old Onida ad, owners pride, neighbors envy. And I think that's the India fintech story. I'm looking forward to spending a little time in the wonderful exhibition that you have put together. Somebody just told me that it's very crowded and there are too many people. It's probably been the largest footfall beyond estimation, 85,000 people coming in already. Compliments to all the organizers. But Chris, that will not deter me from going to the exhibition because I'd love to see the good work you and your colleagues have put together. And now being a Lok Sabha representative from North Mumbai, I think I shouldn't be worried about the crowds. I welcome crowds. I'm told there are some very, very notable startups also who have presented their story. Sankul Capital, who talks about rural women being financed. Micron Sure, who's working with migrant workers and their welfare, their financial inclusion. Several influencers like Sharan, Anushka Rathod. My compliments to all those, many of whose names I could not take today, for all the wonderful work you're doing. May I, in conclusion, just make a couple of suggestions. First of all, our success story needs to be told. It needs to be presented and represented across the world. And I would urge as many of you as are able to travel, as many of you get a chance to interact at different forums internationally, to please maybe take some literature, maybe get yourself up to date with all that's happening on the great India fintech story, and take the message across the world of what we have done. It's very important to inform people about the India success story, because that will add to your business opportunities. When we are leading the world in financial inclusion, I think the world should also recognize this potential and help us engage much more with the rest of the world. Two, the GIFT City offers a tremendous opportunity to your sector. Financial tax benefits have been extended up to March 25. I would urge as many of you who are looking at the GIFT City to look much more deeply at the opportunities the GIFT City presents to all of you. Three, I think there's still a large number of women whom we should engage and involve through fintech and help them come into the banking system, build up their credit history, their CIBIL scores, so that as they get into the formal workforce, as more and more of them become entrepreneurs, I'm sure the banking sector and the fintech sector can help our women also contribute in a bigger way to the formal workforce and formal economy, particularly in the tier 2 and 3 cities, in the agriculture sector, in the MSME sector. I think this can play a very important role. Number 4, I think there are certain emerging sectors. I'm told RBI today also talked about, or during the Fintech, talked about their own digital currency or the non-fungible tokens. I think neo-banking is coming into play increasingly, and I'm sure some of you would like to take up these new initiatives for your own business. 5th, artificial intelligence is the flavor of the season. I would urge all of you friends, please look at ethical artificial intelligence. It's very important that artificial intelligence does not become a tool being misused by the wrong people, but becomes an enabler for all of you to do good for society, for the nation, and for the world. I'm sure we can combat money laundering or financial crimes through ethical artificial intelligence. 6th, while a lot of action has happened, a lot of strides in financial literacy, I do believe there's still opportunities, particularly through greater awareness of insurance, pension schemes, and how financial business models or credit scores can help people, particularly the budding young entrepreneurs, startups, agriculturists, small hawkers or small businesses, micro businesses. I think more financial literacy is called for. I would urge all of you to give a small portion of your time, since you are the enlightened people. Maybe give 2 hours in a week, give 1 day in a week. And Chris knows my views about it. I've said it on many occasions at the National Startup Advisory Council also, that if all of us, the privileged sections of society, agree to give back a little bit of our time, our knowledge, our experiences, and the good opportunities that we have been benefited with to the less privileged, I think we can do a tremendous service to our motherland. We can actually help more and more youngsters and new entrepreneurs become financially literate and contribute to the great India growth story, the great future that beholds all of us. I'd like to invite all of you for taking the India story as your own story. Accept it, adopt it, be proud of your achievements, but never rest on your laurels. We have miles to go, lots of mountains to cross, as they say. With every one mountain that you cross, you only discover many more that behold you and are ahead of you. As the Honourable Prime Minister said today, and I'd like to reiterate, and I quote, I believe India's Fintech ecosystems will enhance ease of living of the entire world, and our best is yet to come. My best wishes to all of you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. I must also tell you that Minister has agreed to take few questions. Before that, let me take a minute. First of all, thank you very much, sir, for coming over, giving this erudite address. I know that you let go an important function in Delhi to be with us, so thank you very much for that. The Minister flagged the issue that India is already a leader in technology world today, but we should celebrate that and let the world know that. And I would probably say that GFF is one such event where we are trying to do that. Minister also flagged about the last 10 years transformation that has happened, the financial inclusion success through the Jan Dhan, and what he mentioned and what I would call as the zero balance account revolution. He said there are new management lessons to be learned regarding aggression in setting targets and monitoring. I recall one of my friends telling after an event overseas, which our Honourable Prime Minister addressed, said that they wanted 4 years and I gave them 4 months. And we achieved what we had to in 4 months' time. Very important. I mean, the other important issue, sir, about your credit score being improved, I think there are already players who are doing this, but probably they need to do this focused on women, which is very critical. Maybe before I open up for a few questions, I let you know a conversation which I had with one of the foreign delegates, which probably summarizes where we are, what we are, and the kind of leader we have, is that he said, I don't know how many leaders of nations today would ever dare to come to a Fintech conference and address. and that summarizes, I think, our Honourable Prime Minister and his vision. So thank you very much. 2, 3 questions, or if Minister is taking more, I'm okay with that. But please pass the mic around, raise your hand, identify yourself, and ask the question. Yeah? Give a mic there.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Minister. So I just wanted to understand, when we promote financial inclusion and fintech playing a very core important role. So there's an effect called Cantillon effect. 1860, Richard Cantillon, he told, one who stays close to the source of money tends to benefit more.
Sorry, I was not able to catch that.
Okay. I'll repeat my question again. So we promote financial inclusion with help of fintechs. Okay. So there's a very famous theory called Cantillon theory by Richard Cantillon, 1860. So he tells, rich gets richer, poor get poorer. So whoever stays close to the money, or whoever is close to the source of money, tends to get richer. And as and when the benefit draws down to us retail people like us, the inflation eats up the major benefit. So how is fintech solving this problem?
Well, I think your question itself has the answer. We are living in the 21st century. We are forward-looking. We are looking at the people who give us inspiration for the future. That's a 160-year-old theory you're referring to. That's gone, by the way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 108 unicorns in India. We wouldn't have all these fintech entrepreneurs. All these success stories are testimony that that's a failed theory. The rich getting richer would never have made the success stories of today what they are. I can tell you, if you look at, let's say, the top 100 companies even 30 years ago, and you look at the top 100 companies 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago and today, you'll see a massive churn. Probably you may not find more than 10 or 15% who would be there through the 30-year period. That is the churn. New entrepreneurs, new age companies are today showing the world their capabilities. One generation entrepreneurs have today become billionaires and more. I mean, I don't think Jeff Bezos, for example, or Sam Altman had inherited wealth because some rich person was there with him. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg in Harvard, he's the Harvard guy or Stanford? Mark Zuckerberg is Harvard, a dropout from Harvard. Now, I don't think when he started Facebook, he had any riches to his account. So I think that's a failed theory. I'm sure we have in this room many people who would not have seen the kind of riches or the kind of money that they are seeing today. I am one of those. I worked 30 years in my life. I started my own career before I became a minister, that is. In 81, I started a small factory, very small factory. The total project cost was 19,80,000. That was my project cost. I was supported by the government institutions like IDBI and ICICI. ICICI had become private by that time, or was not yet, it became private after that, and Union Bank of India. Now these were all financial companies. Without their support, I couldn't have even started out. It was a small scale unit, but then we kept growing all the years till I was there. And then afterwards, others have grown it even further. So I think this country is full of entrepreneurial ability. We are a $3.5–4 trillion economy today. 2047 will be a $35 trillion economy.
Totally agree.
With your permission,
Thank you,
can I
Honourable
add a
Minister.
sentence? I think you must also understand one thing, unlike the West, important difference in this country, it is democratization of finance, and there is digital public infrastructure which is plug and play. So we are not allowing monopolies to come up rich getting richer. I think we must accept that fact as well.
That's right.
Give a mic. If you have a lady then.
Good evening, sir. We talked about rural entrepreneurs and as you mentioned, so given the rapid advancements, how does the government plan to integrate these fintech solutions to improve the access of credit for smallholder farmers so we ensure that they also participate in digital economy?
Beta, that's a very good question and a very good point you make. In fact, the entire thrust of our effort from the government today is to reach through fintech these small and marginal landholders, very often the landless farmers or the landless labor. I'll give you a simple example and how I think this will have a huge impact on all these less privileged sections. I had gone just about 2 hours away from Jaipur to a tribal area about 1.5 years ago. And in that tribal area, a number of families had been the beneficiaries of a free home under the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana. The Prime Minister has already built, the government of India has built 40 million homes across the country for the poorest of the poor. The Dalits, the persons who for years were discriminated in society, backward classes, economically poor families. 40 million homes have already been built. Of course, we have a plan in the next 5 years to build another about 40 million homes, of which 30 million we have already approved in the cabinet. Now, when I visited a small it wasn't a small family actually, a small home. The family comprised a man who was physically challenged, his wife who was a laborer in the farms, and 8 girls and 1 boy, 9 children. But the joy when I met that family and everybody in the family, the eldest in the family girl was probably your age. I'm assuming, I can't with the lights make up, but I'm assuming roughly your age. I promise you, her smile was so beautiful. That girl proudly told me, I'm a graduate. She had a smartphone in her hand, maybe a hand-me-down, maybe, but she had a smartphone. She showed me the room, one room where they had a bed, and said earlier my father used to sleep on the ground, but now he sleeps on a bed because he was physically challenged. The lady, of course, being traditional Rajasthani, had her ghungat and all, but was around. All the children were frittering around me. They showed me a second room, which was kind of the kids' room and a living room. Took me to the kitchen. It had a gas connection. And on that, tea was being cooked for me. And I promise you, it was the best tea I've had in my whole life. Tastiest tea I've had. चीनी ज़्यादा थी, पर वो चीनी उनके प्यार की चीनी थी, उनके लगाव की चीनी थी. She took me out to a toilet block outside the house. There were there was a toilet block, toilet and bath area. There was a wash basin with water from a tap. Now, all of these, they had received through financial transactions. So they received the money to build the house through a banking transaction, through a DBT transfer from the central government, from one department of the central government, the Rural Development Department. For the toilet, they had received a separate 12,000 rupees from another banking transaction through their mobile and banking account. For the gas connection, they had received a third remittance. All of these were through the efforts that you have all institutionalized and, as he rightly pointed out, democratized. The lady of the house during COVID had received affirmative, or let's say subsidy, to support her overcome the COVID crisis. The child was receiving an educational scholarship and was probably studying for B.Ed. She wanted to become a teacher. The children were going to school. Now, the story for the farmers, small farmers, or for the landless laborers like her, is very similar. They keep getting their benefits from the government without a middleman, no corruption along the way, nobody siphoning off 85% of the money we send from the government, like was claimed or was reported 30 years ago, that every rupee that goes from the central government in Delhi, only 15 paisa reaches the poor. The rest is gone along the wayside in corruption, middlemen and whatnot. Those days are gone. Now, when this money reaches them, when they are eligible to take a small mudra loan of maybe 10,000, 50,000, 1 lakh rupees for their urgent needs, when the small farmer receives 6,000 rupees every year in his bank account through the Prime Minister's Kisan Samman Yojana, and look at the choice of naming the scheme. He has not given it as some gratis or some favor, or जिसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं खैरात नहीं दी है. It's not a donation or some favor being given. It is the right of our annadatas, our farmers, who are making this country self-sufficient in food grain, ensuring nobody sleeps hungry in the entire country through thick and thin. So each of these steps is helping the farmers, raising necessary money as and when they need it for their essential requirements. It is helping government take money to the small and marginal farmers, helping taking information through ENAM, the electronic marketplace, through which they get information at what price in different markets they can sell their wares, where they can get a cooperative society or a self-help group to provide them some farm implements they may require, rent a tractor or rent a harvester or some equipment. So all told, digitalization, and within that, Fintech is playing a tremendous role in our effort to increase the income of farmers, to help them integrate with modern best practices, and also help them and their children prepare for a better life in the future. Thank you, ma'am.
I'll take one more question. Yeah?
Honorable Minister, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. My name is Ravi Sutanshni. I talk about fintech and building in the same space.
Can you just hold the mic like this so it comes clear? I'm not able to understand.
Am I audible, sir?
Much better.
Sure. I wanted your view on exporting India's DPI to other developed countries because we have been handling at this massive scale. In UPI, ONDC, and couple of other public good has been scaled at this scale because these are not managed by private entities. So how do you see India's DPI being exported to other developed countries? Thank you.
Friends, I can share a small personal experience. This was about 2 years ago, I think, March of 2022. just after COVID. The Dubai Expo was getting over on that day. And I had gone to Dubai for the concluding ceremony. And I met the chairman of ADIA, His Highness Sheikh Hamid, who's also my counterpart in the high-level task force on investments that UAE and India have. It was meant to be only a courtesy call, but we got talking about the UPI and how it could have a tremendous impact, given that there are more than 3 million Indians who work in UAE. How it could make their life easier in terms of remittances, in terms of their ability to transact with their homes back in India. I also discussed with them about RuPay card. I said, you are paying such large amounts of money as transaction fees for every debit or credit transaction that your citizens and your residents in UAE are doing. Why don't you try out NPCI and use the RuPay card? I went to the extent of telling him that it may be a good idea. You have barely got 10 million people in your country. Just give everybody a RuPay card, all 10 million people resident in UAE, and see the savings that your people will have in their financial transactions. And we also talked about the direct trade between UAE and India through rupees and dirhams. So we are not all the time converting currency into a third currency and have 4 or 5 iterations of currency exchange, which costs our traders and our business persons 4 or 5% and adds to our non-competitive trading. So if we save that 4-5%, our competitiveness can significantly improve. And believe me, a 20-minute courtesy call extended for more than an hour and a half. The excitement was palpable. And we made rapid strides since then. Today, UPI has signed up with UAE. I think India and dirham, rupee and dirham trade has started. Now, these are things where obviously government-to-government interaction, interrelation, central bankers have to align their systems. That takes some time. But once it happens, it kickstarts very rapidly. And I think with different countries, we are at different levels of engagement. Prime Minister Modi is very clear that India would like to offer our DPI, our digital public infrastructure. It began with the India Stack and the UPI story. Then we did the COVID time Setu, Arogya Setu. We have ONDC now, which is also developed on the backend protocol of Nandan. So India continues in its journey of preparing more and more modern and efficient digital public infrastructures. And India is not selfish. We would like to offer it to the rest of the world. We'd like to offer it to less developed countries or developing nations particularly to help them in their journey as they take their people out of poverty. Because for India, for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and if I dare say for 1.4 billion Indians, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, is our ethos, is what we believe in, and we all collectively as a nation, 140 crore Indians, look upon the world as one family, having one future, and we'll all work towards a better future for mankind, so that, as Mahatma Gandhi had said, we are all trustees who have inherited the planet only so that we can leave behind a better planet for the generations to come. And I must say, your sector, the fintech sector, is certainly leaving behind a big, bold and beautiful footprint on the sands of time through your contributions to make the world a better place to live in and towards ease of living for the common man of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.